Hello and welcome to yet another video, and in this video it is something very different than usual because in this video it's purely just my curiosity because I recently just found this lens for €4. It's the DX 35mm f1.8 for Nikon crop frame censored cameras, but as you can see I have it mounted on my favorite Nikon camera, the D800. It is a full frame camera and it is also a very resolution hungry, good lens hungry camera as well. So yeah, in this video I'm just going to be testing on how good this lens fares with this particular camera. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So after playing around with this lens for a little while now, shooting both against the sunlight and also having the sun at the back of me, and also shooting a little bit of both high aperture and low aperture images, I can actually see that this lens works just fine on this particular body. That being said, when using very high aperture, let's say f10, f9, f8, f14, things like that, you will see the very strong vignetting, like hard, strong vignetting from the curve, like at the very corners of the lens, you see those. I guess it's not a big deal for a lot of people if you're willing to crop the images. But when using like really low aperture settings, let's say, or really bright aperture settings, let's say f2, f1.8, things like that, those vignetting, like really harsh, super harsh edges vignetting turn into like a very smooth vignetting, which, you know, if you're shooting portraits, that can actually help you, in my opinion. So yeah, when shooting at f1.8, f2, I really don't mind having the vignetting, but when shooting landscape like this, where I would need everything to be at around, you know, f10, f11, f14, if I want the sun starburst effect, then it can be a little bit annoying. But otherwise, I really like the operational side of this lens. It is very quiet. It is very still in the way that like the front element doesn't move in and out. I should probably head back that way because I still want to go to the beach. If you can hear the beach sound, like the wave crashing against the coastline, the shore. So yeah, I really like the operational side of this, and the reason why I'm really stoked about this lens is because it's a 35mm f1.8. It's engineered to be a 35mm at its core, but it's in a compact body. So, you know, if you've seen the 35mm for full frame, it's usually quite a bit bigger. Of course, granted, they're usually f1.4. But f1.8 is not that bad either, and having a small size full frame f1.8 is still quite nice. I love 35mm compared to 50. So having this is just a much better option, and I think I quite like it, and I'm willing to trade a little bit of, you know, the image quality on the edges that you see harsh vignetting, just to have this small size 35, and also the image quality seems to live up to, you know, what it's claimed to be, which is very sharp, and it actually can live up to the resolution of the D800 anyway, as of now. Shooting against the sunlight, I do see flaring, but it's not distracting kind of flare. It's livable kind of flare, which is okay. But the contrast didn't decrease too much, and the sharpness still stayed pretty strong. So I'm so far liking this lens for the most part. But we'll be discussing more about this lens later when I get the images on the computer. So it is now about 6:30 a.m. in the morning, and it's really humid right now in Japan. It is in the middle of August, so I guess that is to be expected. But in the same time, the waves are also very calm. I'm not sure how well you can hear me right now, but the waves are quite calm, which is quite nice. So I'm actually back home and just going through all the images that was taken with this particular lens. As you can probably see from some of the thumbnails, there were quite heavy vignetting on some of the images. And as I said earlier, like, yes, there are very clear visible vignetting, especially if you're using very dark aperture settings like f8, f10, f14, what have you. And those kind of vignetting kind of slowly fades out if you're using let's say 1.8, f2, and if your subject is very close to you, then it's going to fade out even more. But once the subject is much further away from you, even if you use f1.8, the vignetting will actually be more apparent as well. It's somewhat both disappointing and expected. The optical quality on this lens itself is actually quite good in terms of sharpness and contrast control. That being said, the contrast does decrease quite a bit if you shoot this with this lens against the sunlight, and also the sharpness will somewhat decrease just ever so slightly by like a hair from what I can see. When you're focusing on subjects that's more like a landscape subject, for example, I think you will have to crop because the vignetting is actually quite heavy. And unless if you're into like a circular look or semi-circular look, you're not going to be able to get much use out of it. And when you do crop in, you will get kind of like a standard 1.5 crop that, you know, the full-frame DSLRs from Nikon will automatically crop into anyway. So it would essentially make this more of like a 50-ish, 52 millimeters. I'm not sure about my math, maybe 52.5, I don't know, millimeters. So you might as well just get like a 50 millimeter for that case. But when you're focusing on super close subjects, you still can use this as somewhat a 35 millimeters, maybe 37 or 38 millimeters if you're cropping in a little bit, just to get rid of that kind of vignetting. In terms of optical quality, if I could go back there, it is quite nice, don't get me wrong, it is quite nice, but it's quite a hassle using this as a landscape kind of lens, or a cityscape, or just have a quick street photography, kind of get everything in focus and go, unless you're willing to, you know, crop in quite a bit, of course. But otherwise, it's a very nice lens. It's a very silent lens. It doesn't move a lot if you focus. It doesn't really, you know, extend out at all. And yeah, if you can find use for it, it's great. But otherwise, I think it's just great for a compact lens that gives you a very nice optical quality when focusing close up. It still gives you a nice optical quality when when focusing further away, but again, you just have to crop. So that's kind of disappointing. But am I still excited to have this in my part of my kit? Yes, absolutely. When I'm using crop sensor Nikon DSLRs, I will be using it a lot more, of course. But for a full frame sensor, I think it's just a great kind of close-up lens. That being said, the lens itself might not deal too well when you're trying to focus too close to a subject, so just stay about like this distance and then you're fine. To most people, it's already good enough for like food photography and some basic macro photography, things like that. But yeah, that has been a good test with this particular lens. I quite enjoyed it, but also quite disappointed, but also quite enjoy it. yeah, just disappointed that I couldn't use it to the full potential, but you know, that was to be expected from the beginning. But yeah, I hope you can actually gain something from this video. If you have any suggestions, any questions, anything to share, please leave them down in the comment section below. If you want a free photography guidebook, absolutely for free, the link is down in the description section below on my website. You don't need to submit your email address or anything. If you want to, you know, watch a free photography guide course as well, and some paid one as well, it's also on my website. The link is also down in the description section below. Otherwise, I thank you all very much for watching. Stay safe, have fun shooting. Till next time, bye for now.